So much for joining us tonight. The Texas Rangers have been called in to investigate the death of a man who barricaded himself inside a bus. That bus was parked outside the Cefco convenience store at the corner of Eastman Road and Cotton in Longview. Tonight, KLTV7's Celeste Lay has brand new information from Longview Police.
Responded to this location and encountered an armed barricaded subject inside of a bus.
At 3:20 this morning, the Longview Police Department received a call about a bus driver that remained parked on the premises of a gas station after being told to leave multiple times. The standoff happened at a Cefco gas station located at the corner of Country Club and Eastman Roads in Longview and lasted more than 7 hours. Employees first asked the man to leave last night. Police asked employees to leave the premises and wait across the street. SWAT was called in and police surrounded the store and fired tear gas into the bus, to which there was no response.
Obtained a search warrant throughout the investigation and found that the subject was deceased inside of the bus.
Police say a relative from Florida told them he may have been experiencing a mental health episode, something that has happened in the past. Although this still is an active crime investigation, the man appeared to have died from what seemed to be a self-inflicted injury. Celeste Lay, KLTV 7 News.
And we just talked with the folks at that Cefco store. They are back open tonight.